This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 89, Taking Responsibility. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson, and I am the host. I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
What is up, everybody? This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for show 90 of the Authentic Spiritual Journey, Taking Responsibility.
And we're going to do just that today. I'm going to take responsibility for the fact that I've got a lot going on right now, and I want our listeners to know about it because it is all related to the shows we're doing. Coming up in April, I'm teaching another Dream Big, Live Big online class, and as well as that starting on Monday, April 6th, I've also got another class on Wednesday, April 6, 7, 9, right? 6,
7,
8. Okay.
Math.
Wednesday, April 8th is the advanced class of Dream Big, Live Big. So if you've ever taken Dream Big, Live Big, you're welcome to join us for this class. It is a fee, but the fee has been heavily discounted so that we can get as many people as possible, because the whole point in these classes, dear friends, is to support you on the journey. And the initial class of Dream Big, Live Big basically gets you going and gives you the process. It takes 7 full weeks, really, to fully understand and to be fully practicing the process. And so after the initial class, the reason the advanced class comes in handy is because then you finally start to deepen into the work and you start to expand out, where you begin to manifest all the things you're working on that first 7 weeks, and then get support and guidance for the moving, changing flow of your life. And I'm telling you, so many people have had wonderful manifestations and have found the advanced class to, really support them once they've done the initial work.
Yeah, and these are deliberately small classes with very personal attention. It's interactive.
Yes.
Everybody can see each other. So it's not just sign up, pay your fee, and get a bunch of videos, but it's very directed.
Yes.
Very directed curriculum.
Yes. And there's support throughout the 7 weeks, as well as following up with videos. There's a lot of materials. You receive the whole presentation. So really, it's very, very professionally done. I'm so grateful, Dave, to your wife, Shannon, and the great work she does behind the scenes. And we're looking, too, to offer the class to people all over the country, and are looking at ways of doing that. So when that is going to happen, we just don't have a date yet, but we'll tell you it's going to be offered on other platforms as well, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, and that's going to be a non-continuous thing. That's going to be more like independent study with video lectures and stuff. So
yes,
it's
I won't
not
be
quite
live.
The one-on-one live thing.
Mm-hmm.
But these classes are live. Of course, as always, we'll have links to this in our show notes. And we mentioned this today's topic, taking responsibility, and something that we've started doing that we didn't really talk about that we're doing it, but something that's working really well. And you may have noticed it, listeners, is we've started to coordinate our affirmations with the show topic. So you're going to find this week all of the affirmations are supporting and lifting up today's topic of taking responsibility.
Yes, we're getting a little smarter in the way we're programming. And the fact is, there's so much that I love to teach, and there's so much to learn spiritually that I never have a lack of content, but what we're wanting to do is to support you better in going deeper in the teachings, and hence the connection, the coordination of the topics, so that, if you hear an affirmation first thing in the morning, later you hear the show, boy, it's going to really bring that thought home, that teaching home in a way that just hearing it one time, may not. So,
and then lastly, we're 10 shows away from show 100, which is going to post on on May 25th, and we are wrapping up our final details for our live taping of Show 100. So be sure to check out, maybe subscribe to our the newsletter that we have at experienceofthesoul.com, and we'll be more than happy to add you to our mailing list. We don't sell it or sell your name or anything like that,
No,
but
no.
but details are going to be coming soon, and we would love to have you join us for a live recording of Show 100.
Yes, and I know there's a place on the website to contact us through email, and I'm mentioning that because one of the things I've learned that's real important in some of my career work is it's really great to have comments of how the work I've been doing, the work Dave and I are doing, CC Orlando, the way all that work has blessed your life. If you're willing to share that with us to use, we'd love to list some of those endorsements on our website because we feel strongly that if the work is helping you, we want to let people know so they have confidence when they click on that, this is not something we just started talking about yesterday. This is something that the spiritual teachings are ancient teachings that we're bringing into the modern day. We love to say ancient wisdom, modern relevance. And so we invite you into that in a more real level, if you don't mind. If it's supported you and it's really blessed you, please leave that, send us an email.
Yeah, you can reach out to us at experienceofthesoul.com/contact, or you can leave a message or you can leave a comment on our YouTube channel on this episode. Just leave a comment. We get notifications, and we try our best to respond to every single one of those. And you can hit us up on Facebook as well. So lots of different ways to reach out and connect with us.
Yep, a lot of great shows coming up. So today is Taking Responsibility. And I felt very guided to do this topic because in our culture today, I see a lack of taking responsibility. I see it in the level of church members. I see it in the level of leaders in our community. I see it in ministers. I see it in children and teenagers. I see it in the community at large. And I most definitely see it in our world leaders right now. It's interesting. I have to be careful because I have some good friends that are politicians. What I almost said is I definitely see it in politicians, but I can't say that anymore because I know some excellent politicians. Well, I shouldn't even call them that. I know excellent civic leaders, and one of those is Patty Sheehan that I greatly, greatly admire. And to me, she just rises far and above what I see most leaders do. So I'm a real fan of hers, and love the work of Buddy Dyer as well in Orlando. But some of our world leaders, I find that the lack of responsibility, frankly, is deeply concerning. And so it's not something I've heard talked about much in a spiritual setting relating out into the world, but taking responsibility is really a spiritual mandate. Our last show, we talked about parents as leaders. And so I want to connect to that show in that as parents, if we don't take responsibility for our choices, our children see that and then they do the same thing. They deflect, they say it's somebody else, the dog ate my homework excuse for not doing your homework or not turning in your homework. This is a classic example.
Yeah, as a teacher, I just see 21st century versions of that. My internet was being weird. My computer broke down. I couldn't get online. Yeah, all those things. And when you're taking responsibility, if your internet isn't working, you go 2 doors down to a friend or to the coffee shop or I've done that, friends. When you're serious about what it is you're doing and you're taking responsibility for it, there's almost nothing that can stop you. Yeah, and it's exactly what I tell students. Get thee to a McDonald's.
Exactly. I mean, like Wi-Fi is everywhere, friends. Right. That's really not an excuse anymore. Maybe 5 years ago you could use that, but not anymore.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So taking responsibility. So first of all, the most important place, of course, to take responsibility is for your soul. And as you begin to do that, it really does impact every other area of your life. The reason I began by talking about kids is because as I said, I'm tying it to our last show, but also because I'm deeply concerned about the level of responsibility our kids, teens, and young adults are taking for their life, for their work, and even for the community at large. It seems to be that we've become very myopic in our focus and mostly even, I will say, even narcissistic in our focus. Americans in general tend to be the most narcissistic culture of the world, in my view. And because it's all about me, it's all about how I feel, it's all about what I want. And we have the money, the resources, the places, to get it. So as that grows and our addiction to capitalism increases and our addiction to having, what our kids are learning is what you have is who you are. Yeah, that's what our kids are learning. They're also learning that if they're, as long as they're quiet and out of the way, their parents are happy. So this is bringing on more addiction to devices. So see, the parent and the child interaction is really important in terms of taking responsibility for how you're raising your family. So, but before you can really do that well, you have to take responsibility for your soul. We talked months ago that first of all, we have to say, I am a soul, not I have a soul. I am a soul. I am a soul. What does this mean? My soul is the thing that is with me. It's with me actually before I'm born. It is me before I'm born. It comes into the body and it stays with me as I die. It's the sum total of my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs, my ideas. In other words, I'm not my paycheck, I'm not my race, I'm not my orientation, I'm not even where I was born. Those are factors in the soul journey, but those are not who I am. They're just a circumstance I am born into. So first, once we realize we are a soul, okay, if you're listening to this show, you probably understand that point, and you're like, okay, great, I'm a soul. Now what? Okay. Well, if you know you're a soul, then the first thing you have to begin to do is dialogue with your soul, right? See what's there. Make choices in the best interest of your soul. Well, if you don't know you're a soul, you're not dialoguing with your soul, you're not making time to meditate, to journal, to listen to the voice within, then all the other areas of taking responsibility are going to be really impacted. I've met a lot of people over the years, several that work in academia, and a lot of the people I've come in contact with, they'll do the right thing, but just because they know they're supposed to, not because their soul is really guiding them to. And so when you're really taking responsibility for your soul, your actions and the reason for your actions really shifts, because you understand the long-term impacts of your actions, not only on, the current situation, but on moving your soul forward. So in taking responsibility for your soul, you want to first realize you are a soul. We know that. We want to begin to listen to the voice of spirit that resides in the soul. We want to be aware of these desires, that come forward, of things we want to create and accomplish, which even has a little bit to do with purpose, obviously. And then finally, as we begin to make choices, we want to make choices from the highest spiritual awareness possible. And then as we do that, we are taking responsibility for our soul, because our soul's desires, our soul's dreams, our soul's wants, we're hearing those and then taking action and moving forward. As I'm saying all of this, just because we take responsibility for our soul, it doesn't mean everything is perfect. Can I have an amen?
Amen.
It means that whatever happens, we take responsibility. Yeah, whatever happens, we take responsibility, and that we seek to live life from the highest spiritual realm possible. We often come back to the show we did many shows ago. I'm going to ask Dave to look it up. A View from
I'll
the
find it.
Mountaintop.
Yep.
where we discuss this idea of looking at life from the highest possible level. And we described a place in nature I've been many times. It's called Max Patch, and it's in North Carolina. And in that, from that point, you can see, I can't remember how many states. It's like, maybe it's 3 states, but it's a beautiful view of seeing all the way around. In other words, it's a full 360 view. Well, mostly when we make decisions in life, we're making them from the limited ego self rather than this high spiritual realm. This high spiritual realm, which is the realm of spirit, which is the realm of God, which is the realm of your soul's highest awareness. So when we say take responsibility for your soul, this is what we're meaning. That we make choices that are in the best interest of our soul. For instance, if somebody does you wrong, it's natural to want to do wrong back. That's natural. That's human. Very human. Somebody says something about you, hurts your feelings. You want to say, well, that crazy person did such and such.
That's when you want to have control over the karma that you feel they should receive.
Yeah, that's good old fashioned ego right there. Right. And when we're acting in the best interest of our soul, that may be an initial reaction because we're human. But then we look at that and say, I wonder why this came to me right now. So if somebody says something to me hurtful and I respond hurtful, that is going to continue a cycle that it looks a lot like violence. You hurt me and I'm going to hurt you. So it's on a subtle level, but it is a violent act if someone attacks you verbally, through email, and you attack back, you're participating in violence.
Yeah, that's not karma. That's revenge.
That's revenge,
vengeance
which does
and
create
retribution.
Which, Dave, as you're saying, does create karma. Mm-hmm. Karma, the word karma simply means action, right? So as you respond that way, you're creating more karma for yourself instead of acting in the best interest of your soul. Well, I've mentioned this book a couple times recently, and it's really up in my consciousness the last few weeks. It's called The Book of Forgiving, and it was written by Bishop Desmond Tutu and his daughter. And I believe her name is spelled M-P-H-O, and I made up how it's pronounced.
Like Mfo? Or?
I think it's Mfo, yeah, or maybe even Fo. But it's a great book because it talks about in there the cycle of violence, revenge, and then more violence. And what I've seen in my own life, what I've seen in working with others, is that anytime we're done wrong, any reaction of the same energy simply not only continues the cycle, but even makes it bigger because we've added to the negative energy. The stories in that book are very, very moving. The stories in that book of what they have had to go through and how they found the power of forgiveness is miraculous. And what I felt the whole time I was reading those stories of forgiveness and moving out of that, that cycle is that rather than this closed loop of violence, hurt, revenge, more violence, well, once you move out of the cycle, the violence only happens once. It doesn't increase. It doesn't get larger. It doesn't expand in its negativity. It's like when I saw the way they drew it out in the book, I instantly felt it was almost like this tornado of negative energy. And I don't know if any of you listening have been caught in a negative email train where somebody sends an email and it's misread or perceived just how it was meant, and an angry email was sent back, and then another one is sent back, and another one, and pretty soon you hope that person doesn't exist anymore. And all it was one simple email. And what I've learned to do in those situations, friends, is put down the computer and pick up the phone and say, is everything okay? I wanted to check out this email you sent. Maybe I'm misreading it. And if there's a legitimate concern, well, what I found is that most people are very happy to talk in a normal voice and a normal tone rather than sending emails with all caps and exclamation points.
Yeah, the book calls it the cycle of revenge.
Yes.
There's a revenge cycle, and there's a which is a loop.
Yes.
And then there's a forgiveness cycle, which has an exit.
Right. You're right, which almost becomes a spiral upward.
Right.
Yeah, it's like there's a break in the circle.
Yeah, this is exactly why I don't get into internet fights like on Facebook and social media, because
Yes.
A, you're not going to change anybody's mind,
Exactly.
and B, that is not a constructive forum.
Yes.
Everybody's there just looking for confirmation bias, and whether it's politics, whether it's what motorcycle should you ride, or whether it's what drumhead brand you should,
I mean, it
use.
is anything.
Yeah, and so I just don't. And there have been so many times when I've been typing, and before I hit send, I'll just kind of take a breath.
When
And-
in doubt, back away.
Right, and I'll just say, what good can come from me sending this? And I try to imagine future me getting drawn into like a back and forth with internet strangers at best, or like really good friends at worst, who you're torching your relationship because you're just so angry, especially old friends. And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, and I'm glad for you to speak a little bit about that, because it brought to mind that any email that is sent that's angry in general means the person feels powerless to have a voice. And so to hit back at that, then, has touched your sense of powerlessness, right? So the goal for us is to rise higher than our circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I mean by taking responsibility for your soul. When you move into soul evolution and true soul awareness, you don't want to get into those fights because you know it is bad news for your soul. You don't want to get into those energetic push-pulls because you know it is damaging you and your spiritual growth.
Yep.
And when you have an awareness that it's from a place of powerlessness or a place of not knowing how to voice your hurt, well, then it takes on a completely different connotation. And, taking the high road can often mean ignoring. It can often mean a direct conversation. It could often mean, clearly, this is not a relationship that's working, so I'm not going to participate in this. There's a lot of different responses. But what I want you to be aware of is that our goal is to make choices in the best interests of our soul. So that is taking responsibility for your soul. We'll be back. We're going to talk more right after these messages.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. We'd also like to extend our special thanks to Zen Living Realty. Zen Living Realty's mission is to mindfully serve, connect, and positively impact their customers, partners, and community through their Zen approach to real estate. Their vision is to be the most trusted real estate brokerage in the Central Florida area. You can reach Zen Living Realty at zenlivingrealty.com or call 407-800-2717. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Welcome back. We're really glad you're with us, and I do hope you are enjoying, have been challenged to think a little bit about some of these interactions. I find that spiritual teachings really are no good unless they're applied to daily life. Otherwise it's just an idea. I don't think it's really a part of your spiritual walk. I have a good friend, Reverend John McLean at Unity of Nashville, who says, if your faith doesn't work in the line at Walmart, it's probably not very helpful.
If your faith only works at church.
Yeah, if your faith only works on Sunday, it's probably not really a faith. It's probably a club, that you're attending. So taking responsibility for your soul is that word, that phrase, was a concept I heard about 20, probably about 20, 25 years ago, when I began to think of myself more as just a person, but as a soul. And so, as you're going throughout, the meditations that we mentioned during the week, each day there's a different level or a different aspect of life to take responsibility for. I saved the soul till last because I wanted to end the week with that idea. And then it's going to kind of circle back on all the other things we talked about during the week because we said, we're taking responsibility for our lives, for our work. I can't remember what the other one was, for our
family.
Oh, and our community. Mm-hmm. And so the other thing, so in addition to taking responsibility for your soul, I just wanted to mention is that once we begin to do it on the soul level, it does impact every other area of life. So if we're taking responsibility for our lives, it means that we're making good decisions. And we only make good decisions if we're in touch with our soul. The decisions you make with your mind are only going to be so good because the mind is limited. And so the soul is expansive. The soul is connected to eternity as well as the here and now reality. So with this in mind, as we take responsibility for our life, always all decisions are going to be run through that lens of how is this benefiting my soul and my soul's work. And what I've learned recently, by the way, is that when we really hold a vision, when we're really working with our soul on a deep level, that sometimes we bypass things that if we were, working for the mind would be steps we'd have to go through. Like sometimes we just get catapulted forward because we're working so strongly at the level of the soul. We have a vision for our lives and spirit goes, oh, wow, great, let's go. We're going to just move her 3 steps forward. We're going to move him, he's going to get 3 more cues. I'm speaking to Dave right now because I know you've been, a lot of people have been purchasing your music and your cues, lately. So it's like, okay, you're not going to just sell 1, you're going to sell 5. You're going to move forward. So as we take responsibility for our lives, it is through the lens, of course, of the soul work that we're doing. And then, of course, that affects all the other areas. If we're responsible for our life, it means we're making good decisions for ourselves, for our work, for our families, and especially in supporting our kids. So all of these are related. All of these are interrelated with the work of the soul. I work with a lot of people in corporations. It's always been that way. And the 2 main areas I work with are people who work in large corporations or entrepreneurs. Both of those. Like some people, like a friend of mine, his ministry is a lot with the retired age. And for some reason, mine just isn't. Mine's with corporate people in the corporate world and a lot of entrepreneurs. And a lot of them are like, sole proprietor, one individual doing a lot of great work. And where was I? And in all of those settings, what I hear from people, and I hear it especially in the corporate world, people are afraid to take responsibility. The old thing of CYA, cover your, backside. I guess it's CYB if I say it. Cover your backside. And any good manager will see if you're not willing to take responsibility, you're definitely not worthy of advancement. But from research to like these telecom companies, every corporation, every individual I've ever counseled in a corporation talks about that. People are not willing to take responsibility, and they are so busy trying to cover their backside that they're not producing, right? So taking responsibility is a spiritual discipline, really, and it requires some vulnerability on the part, on the part of the soul that's walking through it. Because it's hard to take responsibility when you make a mistake. I've had to do it myself.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good to admit you're wrong, and especially if there are going to be some real repercussions to that, and that's why I think a lot of CYA happens at work and in the workplace, because there could be a reprimand, or it could be you get,
or you could lose your job.
Or you could lose your job.
Yeah. And So I've seen a lot of that in the corporate world, and with entrepreneurs, they're kind of forced to take responsibility because it is, because it's just them. There's no
Yeah,
one to
it
blame. It's
starts
all
and
on them.
stops with them.
Yeah, if somebody says to you, Dave, why don't we have the queue? You can't say, well, my assistant didn't give it to me. You say, well, because I didn't get it done, and I will have it to you by this date.
Yep.
And so I want to encourage you just to be aware, and it's often the not taking responsibility is often very subtle. It kind of sneaks in. It's like, oh yeah, what if I just say I didn't see the email even though I did? Yeah, what if I just say, oh sorry, somebody forgot to give me that even though they did, So these are the subtle ways it happens. And because we don't want to look bad, instead of just, you know what, I missed that email. I am so sorry. I will get on it right away. And then we take responsibility and fix it. Yeah. So what I've noticed too over time, when we don't take responsibility, that kind of that energy starts to fold in on itself, and pretty soon we're walking around full of guilt and shame, and it becomes part of the fabric of how we live. This guilt and shame just becomes something we carry, right? So it's so important, and especially in the workplace, to take responsibility. It's like, you know what? I missed that. I am so sorry. I will clean it up. And then going to clean it up. I actually, I'm scared to admit this, but I'm going, which is why I'm going to. I had an interaction with my therapist recently that was difficult, and I had to go back and say, you know what, this was really my stuff. I flew into manic defense because I didn't like what you said, and I'm so sorry. I needed to hear it. That is on me. Please accept my apology. And of course, she was like, not necessary, and thank you.
Yeah, I get that from students.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just because I'm dealing with
Yeah.
young adults,
Yes.
so many
Yes.
of the students are just out of high school and they're on their own for the first time and taking responsibility. And of course, I'm hitting at it from kind of a professionalism
sure.
kind of angle, but I always tell them it's much better to admit that you've messed up and improve yourself on the other side of that and figure out, okay, why did I procrastinate? Is I'm lazy or undisciplined or I didn't want to do it or I'm bad at it and so that was making me not want to do it. And I tell them it's so much better. This whole, it's better to ask forgiveness than, none of that doesn't work. That's terrible advice. And just to either lie or try to kind of BS your way through it. I'd say that's no way to conduct yourself professionally at all. Publishers, they would much rather hear, and this goes just general, not just publishers. They would much rather hear, I messed up and here's how I will improve myself and fix how I messed that up.
Yeah, and in ministerial school, part of the process for becoming a minister in the particular faith I find myself in, there's an intensive process where you go through an interview process, and they ask you, it's kind of Q&A, but it's deep Q&A. It's about your life, it's about your spiritual journey, and all that. And then throughout your years in school, you have these a time of testing called L&O, which stands for licensing and ordination. And in licensing and ordination, you'll go into a small room with 3 or 4 faculty sitting there, give a message, and then they sit and pick it apart and ask you questions about it. And so in 2 different cases, in both my interview and then in L&O, I got some very difficult questions. And in one of in my interview process, I remember I had shared this spiritual experience, and our listeners know that if you've heard me very long, I do have some miraculous spiritual experiences, connections, unbelievable ways that the universe shows itself to me, and I believe to all of us. But anyway, this was about me and my process. And I was challenged on one of my experiences, and I wasn't expecting that. It was a great minister. His name was Alan Robotham. And he said, how do you know it's true? I said, that's a great question. And I said, here's how. And I, went through a confirmation experience I had. I said, it's funny you said that because I asked myself the same thing. Experiences like this, how do I know I'm not making it up? But then when I'm working with God and saying, I need support, I need a sign, I need affirmation, and I received it. And, he said, I would ordain you now after that. But I felt challenged and I had to take responsibility. I had to take responsibility for, but at first, it felt like a little bit of a push, like this is too fantastical. This didn't happen, I don't know and I thought maybe he doesn't believe me.
Like, are you calling me a liar? Is
yeah,
that what's
exactly.
happening? Or
How
just
do you know it's
exaggerating?
true?
Right.
And the whole room was like, because it was a really moving experience. I wasn't crying, but clearly it was a heartfelt experience. And he was like, well, how do you know it's true? He was like, you're not going to convince me. And it was good because that's a member might ask the same question, so it was learning, but I had to take responsibility for my experience, which was big because I thought, what if I say it wrong? I don't get in, so all
There's
this
a
is
lot riding on
lot
that
writing on
answer.
that question. Yes. And then in our, in a licensing and ordination, testing period or exam, they asked me a question. It was such a simple question, but I could not pull up the answer. And I said, I'm so sorry. I don't know. I know it's here, but I cannot pull it up for anything. And they said the answer. And I just burst out laughing. And later I saw one of the members and he goes, well, I'm not supposed to do this, but the truth is, you couldn't have had a better answer than I don't know. Right, because he said, what we see a lot, like you were saying, Dave, what we see a lot in our students is they so badly want to do it right, they'll just bluff their way through, which makes it worse.
That's right.
And the people that we put on concern, that's what it's called, on concern, in quotes. I'm doing air quotes for those of you listening. You get on concern, is stuff like that. Because they say, if a member asks you that and you do that, that's not cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's... with counseling and that kind of thing, I could really stick on somebody.
That's a huge integrity issue, yeah. So I started out a little bit talking about kiddos because I wanted to relate it to our other show and also just talk about culture in general because I'm beginning to see a lack of responsibility everywhere. And so I really talked a lot about taking responsibility for your soul. We talked a little bit about for your life in general, and then we've talked a little bit about work. I want to talk last about family and community and what I mean by that. When I say take responsibility for my family, I don't mean you run in and rescue everybody and go codependent crazy on us. And you could think that's what I mean. Like, okay, somebody needs help, I run in. Sometimes that's the worst thing to do if somebody, say, is in addiction or somebody is in such need and they've been in need for 20 years because everybody keeps rescuing them. Yeah. So when I'm saying take responsibility for my family, it means I pay my bills. It means I keep my family safe. It means I don't put my family in situations that they don't need to be in, that I'm a little bit of a protector and a guide. But it also means I'm aware of what's happening in the larger family unit so that I know how I can connect with that or not, based on what's best for my family, based on what the dynamics are. And even in the case of, looking after a loved one, if I'm taking responsibility, I make sure they have the right care, that I'm supporting those doing more of the care, that I'm checking in, that when I go visit, I'm talking to the nurses, and friends, that I'm speaking from personal experience on all these things. But first, again, I want to just remind you, first I'm taking responsibility for my soul. And then remember, that dictates how I help in these other situations or how I take responsibility. Because again, sometimes helping is not the right thing. Pulling back is right and letting these souls work it out. Because if we interfere when it's not best to, the truth is we're harming their spiritual journey, rather than helping.
And we might be instilling behavior patterns. For whatever reason, we recently got a new kitten, several months ago. Wow, it's been almost a year, but this will make sense. And sometimes you just got to let a kitten be a kitten, and figure out that you can't swallow plastic. I can help. I'm not going to let you swallow it. But if I just fussed at Alan, our cat, if I just fussed at him every time that he could potentially get in trouble, then he wouldn't feel free. He would start to fear me.
Yes, exactly.
And so, yeah, that's
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, and
we don't
with
have
my
kiddos,
son,
so I gotta tie it to my cats.
that works out. Well, that
Yeah.
works out. Well, it's funny. I've never, said this out loud in terms of what I do with my son for allowance, but I have some really clear boundaries around certain things that are to be done in the household, in my home. Because what I've noticed with kids so often, I think I mentioned this in the last show, they don't have any responsibility anymore. Their only job is to go to school. Well, that's important, but what about taking out the trash? What about doing the dishes? What about cleaning out the litter box if you have a cat, or walking the dog, or, something? And, we have a rule at our house where anytime I have to ask my 12-year-old to do something that is on his list to do, a dollar gets taken out of his allowance every time. So you can imagine that that's gotten his attention because every kid wants money to spend. And it's like you're 12 years old. You have gone through this wonderful ceremony where you received your wearing blanket. You're becoming a young man. You're moving into manhood. What kind of man do I want my son to be? If I could tell you the number of times I have heard women in counseling say, my partner or my husband is like another child to look after. I don't want my son to grow up and be the kind of man that doesn't know how to take responsibility for his life. I want him to be the type of man that will do the dishes when no one asks, that will pick up after himself when no one asks, and that will be there as a support and helper and protector for whoever he chooses to be with, as an adult. And this is where he learns it. He's not going to learn it from TV. He's not going to learn it from a game. He's not going to learn it plugged into something.
On the internet or whatever.
He's not going to learn it on the internet. He's not even going to learn it from school. In school, if you don't do homework, you won't get a good grade. But that doesn't translate out into taking care of yourself, your body, your room, your bathroom, your home, your appearance.
Hygiene, all that
stuff. All of that. And it's really shifted the dynamic. It's like, I don't like who I am when I nag, and is inappropriate, at this age. And I know kids 14, 15, 20, 25 that are not doing these normal things my 12-year-old is doing. So I know I'm preparing him to be a good adult. That's the way I'm taking responsibility for my family.
Right.
I'm making sure he's going to be a good adult. And it's so funny. Anytime he goes to another kid's house or whatever, the parents go, he can come here anytime. He's the only kid who offers to do the dishes, who takes his plate in after eating. Most kids just leave a pile of mess, for the parents to come clean up. And so anyway, I feel so happy and proud that he's learning to do that. And it's a way I feel good about helping him take responsibility. It's like I'm taking responsibility for my family by giving him these boundaries, by giving him this. And you know what I've learned? He feels needed. So then he can feel proud of himself that he's needed and an important part of the family.
Yeah, and so when he gets allowance and he's like, and then he goes and spends it, it's not, it means something because he's earned that. And that's, instilling that idea that early in life. I think that's fantastic.
Oh, I've had him plan a whole trip. He really knows how to save money, man. That was a great thing to do too. So, and in the larger community, I just want to say a word about this. If you hear the affirmation this week, you'll hear it too. But I feel so strongly that as a good citizen, it's important to get out there and vote. And it's not just about voting; it's about being engaged in the greater community. Whether that's through your spiritual community, through helping a nonprofit or spiritual center or church of some kind, helping those in need in some way to make a positive difference in your community. Even though all of my work is spiritually based and theoretically helps people, I still make every effort and do engage with the community on a regular basis outside of my work. It means I'm very busy, but I don't feel right about my soul when I'm not doing this. So I want to encourage you to be engaged somehow in a larger community where you coming to the table makes, a noted difference. It might be giving money to an organization. It might be giving your time. It might be all of the above. But I want to really encourage you to take responsibility for your community, because what I hear a lot of is, I don't like what's happening. And then I say, well, how are you engaging? And I get dead silence, right? I don't like it, but I'm not going to do anything about it, right? So that's part of taking responsibility for your community. And believe it or not, again, it loops back to, how am I taking responsibility for my soul? As we do that, it moves our soul forward. So I hope you have enjoyed the show today. I love this topic of taking responsibility. I love talking about it, and I will love hearing your thoughts about it as well. And again, please connect in with us any way you can, whether it's YouTube and subscribing, whether it's going to the website or Facebook page, whatever it may be. Thank you for all the ways you join us, and our goal, our wish, our hope is to support you on the spiritual journey by our spiritual conversations among friends. And our goal is simply to reawaken consciousness to love, acceptance, and peace. So thank you for joining us, dear friend, and blessings on the journey.
And as always, we'll have links to the episode we referenced, View from the Mountaintop, and as well as the Desmond Tutu Book of Forgiving in our show notes for today, March 16th, 2020, episode 90.
See you next time.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, Shayla Mount, Dorothy Moore, Aggie Payton, and Anna Evans. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2020 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.